more underrated video game music no one ever really seems to talk about. I won't waste your time, you know the deal. Unlike my last video on the topic, check it out if you haven't, there's no restrictions or rules here. I'll just be talking about more video game soundtracks that I think deserve a little more appreciation. Now on to the video. There was once a time I would get excited to see some of my favorite childhood games get new releases. The Klonoa remaster, a new Endless Ocean game, and eBaseball Power Bros finally getting a new release in America. Of those three, only Klonoa left me satisfied. I know I made a video of all my excitement over the new Endless Ocean game, but I prefer not to talk about that anymore. As for Power Bros, it's better than nothing, and it was only $1, which for $1, this game is fine, but I want something more. MLB Power Bros is one of the best sports games I've played, and the series is still popular in Japan. All I ask for is a full release here in America. For now, this game is all we have to suffice. The core Power Bros gameplay is the same as the original. The only difference is the lack of content here. Again, for $1, I can't complain too much, but for this to be the first release in 15 years, it hurts. However, one major improvement this game has over the original is the music. Fast-paced, exciting music here doesn't really fit the slow-paced nature of a baseball game, and this is coming from someone who prefers baseball compared to other professional sports. Still, it adds a lot to a game that wasn't meant to be a full release. The music is the best thing here. For a game that doesn't have a lot of music, all the ones here are incredibly catchy, and I looked at it a bit, and the eBaseball series is still super popular in Japan, so if you really are a diehard fan of the series, the games are still playable as the PlayStation 5 and Switch systems aren't region-locked. For now, us stupid Americans get the scraps of the eBaseball games. At least it comes with some great music. Literally just Yosuke Yasui. He literally has the Midas touch when it comes to making video game music. I could fill this whole video with songs from games Yosuke Yasui composed for, and it would be more games than I could fit in this video. Very few of these games are ones I was familiar with before knowing who he was. I first found out about him from Zatch Bell Momoto Battles. From there, it's been a countless number of amazing songs from each game he's been a part of. There are entire playlists on YouTube filled with many of his best songs. With there being so many, you're bound to like at least one. I guess if I had to pick a favorite game out of all the games he's worked on, I'd probably say Eschatos, but that's by a very, very thin margin. I will prematurely announce a series of videos I've planned to right now, that being the top 1,000 video game songs, and I would say Yosuke Yasui is probably the composer who will appear the most in that list, but we'll see when that's fully complete. The Tales series was one I've always been interested in trying. I just haven't had the time to get really into these games. There's so many of them, and I wouldn't know where to start. I've gotten many different Tales games recommended. Tales of Legendia was never one of those games. In fact, it's the Tales game you'll often see close to last in ranking videos of games in the series. It also came out between two games that people associate with being the best in the series, Tales of Symphonia and Tales of the Abyss. Tales of the Abyss coming out the same year as Legendia, so it's no surprise that this game is often forgotten, but the consensus among the people who have played this game that the best thing about this game is its amazing soundtrack. It's really a shame that the soundtrack wasn't put into a more popular game, as the score here would likely be many people's favorites if it were in a more recognizable game. Tales of Legendia isn't horrible, but I can see why it isn't praised as much as other titles in the Tales of series. The combat just feels off, and even after playing this game for a few hours, it gets old quickly. But the combat isn't why it's in this video. It's the soundtrack. Anytime you see people mention this game in videos, comment sections, or forums, it's to praise the soundtrack, and rightfully so. It has this more atmospheric orchestral soundtrack that you would expect in something like a movie instead of a video game. Many of the songs are ones that I would expect to hear in a Disney or Studio Ghibli film. Plus, there's a great variety of songs that fit almost every aspect of the game, from the battles, the dialogue sections, and just simply roaming around the levels. I wouldn't consider this game a must-play, but definitely check out the whole soundtrack if you ever get the chance. Out of all the games I've mentioned in these underrated soundtrack videos, this was the one I was the least familiar with and still don't know much about. I did want to talk a little bit more about the Gran Turismo soundtrack, but I don't think that would qualify for this video since it's such a popular series. So I'll talk about a Gran Turismo clone, according to this guy on YouTube. Enthusia Professional Racing. I'll be honest, if a racing game doesn't have Mario or Crash in the title, it likely isn't for me. I don't hate racing games, I just can't get into them. However, I will say almost every racing game has a really good soundtrack. Enthusia is no exception. I don't know what it is about these games. All of them have these super catchy soundtracks that you never really get sick of. Even if you listen to these songs all day, it would take a while for you to grow tired of them. No different than many of the games in this video, most of the songs here are enjoyable to listen to. I feel like you could put the whole OST into a playlist and shuffle it, and you'd be guaranteed to hear a song that you would like. Many of the songs here sound like something you might hear in a Sonic game, and I mean that in the best way possible. I really don't have many other ways to say how great the soundtrack is here, so I'll just play a few of my favorite tracks from the game. So in my last video, I did tell people to put other underrated soundtracks in the comments. Since many people commented great suggestions, I would feel like a jerk if I didn't include at least one recommendation in this video. I really like many of the choices people picked, but I'd say the one that stood out to me the most was Chili Chili Options' choice, The Dog Island. Let's be honest, if you see the cover of this game, it looks like cheap, crappy shovelware. But what's underneath is a pretty decent game. I never played this game as a kid, but it turns out that the people who made this game also had plushies included in Happy Meals from McDonald's, many of which I have. I knew these designs were familiar when I first saw the game. Of course, this game comes with a great soundtrack. It wouldn't be in this video if it didn't. But when I was playing this game for the first time, it seemed like it was made by people who had a little bit more of a serious game planned, but was told in the middle of development that they had to turn their project into a baby game. Rather than let a good idea go to waste, they inserted their serious game plot here. It's no Shakespeare, but I was genuinely floored by what happens in some of the dialogue here. It's likely because of the cute designs, but the game shows these dogs in pain at times, and it's uncomfortable to watch. It's a pretty simple story of trying to find the cure for your sick brother, but the dialogue here is strangely realistic. Like when the dogs are discussing what to do about your sick brother, this doctor character says that all you can really do is be by his side and make him comfortable in his final moments. Like, the dialogue is only shocking because it's a game with these character designs. At the very least, it makes the game far more memorable than it would have been otherwise. That and the soundtrack are the real standouts here. There aren't many songs here, but what's here is great. I did say in the last video that the composers for many of the games mentioned didn't need to go as hard as they did. That is more true here than any other game I've mentioned. Just look at the cover and the title. This is the textbook definition of a game a grandparent gets their grandchild as a gift, though despite that stigma based on the title and the cover, this is a pretty enjoyable game that has a great soundtrack that sticks with you long after you're done playing. Opuna is one of those games that I'm surprised is real, and not because of anything against the game, but just because I've never heard of it before, and I wouldn't have heard of it if YouTube never recommended one random song from it. I feel like Opuna is a game that, if released today on the Switch, wouldn't have been a massive success, but would have garnered more of a cult following than it has right now. Sadly, not many people really know about this game, and the amazing soundtrack that comes with it. The majority of the soundtrack has this futuristic or spacey feel to it. It usually fits the aesthetic of the game. However, I found the songs that don't fit into this spacey feel are the best ones in the game. Opuna is technically a JRPG, and usually with these games the best songs are the ones from the combat. Opuna is the opposite, where the memorable songs are the ones from when you're exploring the overworld. It makes sense though that these songs are the better ones, since it's the ones you'll be spending the majority of the game listening to. Opuna is also a unique title for the composer of the game, Hitoshi Sakimoto. He has composed for many other well-known games like Final Fantasy Tactics, Valkyria Chronicles, and various Vanillaware games. Most of those games have more grand adventures and stories with these anime characters, while Opuna is sort of its own thing. It kind of stands out when looking at his resume. Still, he was able to pull off creating a great soundtrack that fits this unique and underrated Wii game. The soundtrack for Ace Combat Joint Assault falls into the same category as a game like Tales of Legendia, where it's a forgotten game from a recognizable series. When I looked up people's opinion of this game, it is never ranked as one of the weakest games in the series, but it's also not ranked as one of the best. This is my first time playing an Ace Combat game, and I have to say the gameplay isn't bad, but it does feel sluggish at times. It could just be because of the limitations of the PSP. However, the flaws in this game only prove just how impressive the soundtrack here is. This is the only game I've played where the tone of the game is almost entirely conveyed through the music. It's an Ace Combat game in the PSP, I can't be too harsh, but this is what you're looking at for the majority of the game. None of the characters have faces, most of the dialogue and the voice acting is a little, hit or miss. What does the heavy lifting for setting the tone in this game is pretty much the music. For example, in level 6, Desert Dawn, it starts out as this pretty slow level where you're mostly fighting ground enemies. However, once In the Zone starts playing, the whole level becomes far more exciting. Moments that normally wouldn't have much of an impact are made that much more powerful because of the song that accompanies these scenes. This all culminates towards the final level of the game, where, I'll be honest, one of the best tracks I've heard in a video game plays.
I would never cry to a
video game
song, let's be honest. I am a
It elevates the scene in a way that only many of the greatest OSTs of all time can pull off. The number of memorable tracks here definitely rivals some of my favorite game OSTs of all time. I know that the franchise does have many great songs, but the music for Joint Assault is what truly got me into the Ace Combat series. The last time I made this video, I was happy with my choices, but I did have a limited view of games and only talked about games I had already played at that point. Here, I really delved deep into series and games to discover new songs. Other than Power Bros, None of these games, series, or composers are ones I was familiar with before doing research for this video. In that time, I discovered so many more soundtracks from games I never heard of. There are so many underrated soundtracks out there that I could make 10 plus videos of this kind. So instead of doing 100 of these videos, I'm working on a future, far off project where I rank my top 1000 video game OSTs of all time. I've gotten a decent bit through it, but I really want to leave no stone unturned, so that's where you guys come in. Whether it's underrated or well-known, please put suggestions in the comments down below. I will make a separate video officially announcing it once I get closer to finalizing the list. As for now, that's it for this video. See you all next time.